Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive on storytelling.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking those excerpts that you shared from Unleash the Power of Storytelling.
Right.
And really trying to figure out how you can use it.
Yeah, how to make it work for you. It's interesting,
Yeah.
we often think of stories as just entertainment, but they're really so much more than that. They're really fundamentally wired into how we understand the world around us.
It's funny you should say that because I was thinking about just times I've been really captivated by a speaker, at a conference or even, watching a TED Talk online, and you kind of get that feeling like, wow, I'm really hanging on their every word.
Right.
And according to Duarte, who's given some pretty captivating talks himself, it's not coincidence.
It's not, it's science.
It's science.
Science, yeah. Our brains, they don't really differentiate between hearing a vivid story and experiencing it firsthand. So when we get caught up in a narrative, our heart rate increases, our palms might even get a little sweaty.
Really?
Our bodies are literally responding as if we're living the story ourselves.
You're telling me my brain can't tell the difference between like a really good story and me actually living it?
It's true.
No wonder we get so invested.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about like the thrills and chills, right?
Wow.
It's I was thinking about that research from Made to Stick,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
people just remember stories so much better than just
Yeah.
dry facts and figures.
Absolutely. It's that classic case of show, don't tell, but it applies to way more than just writing.
Okay.
Think about those dating profiles that are just like a list of adjectives, funny, intelligent, adventurous.
Right.
Everyone claims those things.
Everyone's those things, right?
But you tell me a story about a time that you were adventurous.
Yes.
And suddenly, I'm interested. I'm
Correct.
invested.
So then how do we actually build a story that works?
Right.
And
Well, and that's a great question.
I mean, it seems so simple, right?
It does.
But the book actually broke it down into 3 core elements.
Okay.
And this was really interesting to me. It's character, goal, and challenge.
I like it.
And they use this really interesting example of a candy factory.
Okay.
And I was thinking, I don't know if I could make a candy factory that interesting.
Right. Not inherently maybe the most gripping.
Right.
But what makes this example so powerful is that the main character, Estella, is so relatable.
Okay.
So her goal is to maintain quality control,
Okay.
which, that probably doesn't sound that exciting.
It doesn't sound that exciting, no.
But the challenge is finding a way to make that matter, to make that important
Right.
day in and day out when you're doing that same task.
So how does she do it?
How does she do it?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where the power of storytelling comes in, right?
Okay.
So she imagined each candy package going out to her kids.
So suddenly, this seemingly ordinary job had emotional weight.
Okay.
It became about more than just checking boxes.
Right.
It was about taking pride in her work and making sure every single piece of candy was something she'd be happy to give to her own family.
Wow. So it was like she found that why.
She found her why.
Yeah.
And that emotional core, that's what makes all the difference. You see, because emotions are the driving force behind almost every decision we make.
Okay.
Even when we think we're being perfectly logical,
Oh, come on.
emotions are often pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Wait, so you're saying that even when I make my careful pro and con lists,
Yes,
that it's really my emotions calling the shots?
100%.
I like to think I'm a little more rational than that.
Well, it's not that we aren't capable of logic,
Okay.
but the research really shows that emotions play a much bigger role
Yeah.
in our decision making than we might realize.
Interesting.
And stories, well, they're kind of like a direct line to our emotions. So when we hear a story about someone overcoming a challenge or achieving a goal, we don't just understand it intellectually.
Right.
We feel it.
Yeah.
We connect with those emotions. And that's what makes us care about the outcome.
So it's like that saying, right? Like, people won't always remember what you said,
Yes.
but they'll remember how you made them feel.
100%. And think about it this way. Remember back in 2009 when Chrysler was on the brink of collapse?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of bombarding us with facts and fetchers about bailouts and bankruptcy,
Yeah.
they took a different approach. They appealed to our emotions.
Those Clint Eastwood Super Bowl ads, right? It's halftime in America.
Exactly.
Man, chills.
They tapped into feelings of pride, nostalgia, hope,
Yeah.
all these powerful emotions that resonate really deeply with people.
Yeah.
And it worked. People connected with that story.
Totally.
And it helped fuel Chrysler's resurgence.
So, okay, we know emotion is key,
Yeah.
but how do we find those stories in the first place? I mean, not all of us are, working in candy factories or witnessing corporate comebacks every day.
Right.
How do we find these really captivating narratives in our own lives?
I think that's where the book's concept of finding stories in the wild comes in.
Okay.
And it starts by having a filter. What matters to you?
Okay.
What are your core values, the things that you're really passionate about?
Yeah.
Let those be what guide you in your search for stories.
So instead of trying to come up with some grand epic tale,
Right.
it's more about being present and noticing the smaller moments that kind of reveal something a little deeper.
Precisely. Think about the last time you had a really engaging conversation with someone.
Yeah.
What was it about? What were the themes, the emotions that stood out?
Okay.
Those are often clues to the stories that resonate most deeply with you.
So they gave some really interesting examples in the book, I thought, like finding stories at the gym or even waiting in line at the grocery store.
Yeah, just those small moments. It's about paying attention to those everyday moments that reveal something about human nature, about ourselves, about other people.
Absolutely.
And it can be as simple as thinking about the impression you want to make on the world.
Oh, interesting.
What are your strengths?
Okay.
What do you want to be known for?
Okay.
The stories that you choose to share should really align with those qualities.
I love that. It's like we're kind of curating this collection of anecdotes that represent the best version of ourselves. But here's something I thought was kind of interesting is the book also talks about the potential downsides of storytelling.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. Like how things can go wrong when we're not careful.
That's right. Just like any powerful tool, storytelling can be misused, right?
Yeah.
A really compelling story can be so persuasive that it overshadows the facts.
It's like that whole Brian Williams situation where, he embellished a story about being in a helicopter that got hit by enemy fire. And the more he told it, the more dramatic it became until it was just completely different than what actually happened.
It shows how easy it is for our memories to be warped, especially when we've told a story multiple times.
Right.
We might actually start to believe our own embellished versions.
Wow.
And then the truth gets lost in the shuffle.
So how do we balance the power of storytelling with the importance of staying true to the facts?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because we want to be captivating.
Right.
But we also don't want to mislead anyone. Right?
Yeah, of course. It all comes down to integrity, I think.
Yeah.
As storytellers, we have a responsibility to be truthful.
Okay.
That means avoiding exaggeration and resisting the temptation to embellish just for the sake of a better story.
Right.
Even if it means sacrificing a good anecdote if it didn't actually happen. Yeah. It's best to just leave it out.
Okay, that makes sense. So we need to be both captivating and truthful.
Yes.
Which sounds like a tricky balance.
It is a tricky balance.
Any tips for kind of staying on track?
Yeah, I think one really helpful tip is to focus on clarity and conciseness.
So avoid those long-winded tangents.
Exactly.
I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
Think of it like a good movie. It jumps right into the action.
Okay.
And it keeps you engaged. So skip the elaborate setup and get straight to the heart of the story.
No drawn-out opening scenes with lots of exposition.
Exactly. And just like a good editor, be ruthless about cutting out anything that doesn't serve the main purpose of the story.
Wow, okay.
Even if it's funny, even if it's interesting on its own, if it doesn't move that narrative forward, it's got to go.
So it's about being selective and intentional with the details that we choose to include.
Exactly. Focus on those key turning points, the moments that really matter, and make those your focus.
All right, so we've talked about finding stories, crafting them, even keeping them honest. But how does this all tie back to us, to our own lives? And the book talks about something called personal branding. But I gotta admit, that term always kind of makes me think of cheesy stock photos with people flexing in suits.
Yeah, it can sound a little over the top.
Yeah.
But I think here's the thing. Whether we call it personal branding or something else, we are all constantly kind of shaping how the world sees us.
Yeah.
It's those small everyday choices that we make that kind of add up to this bigger picture.
So it's not necessarily about creating this fake persona. It's more about being intentional with how we present ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's where storytelling can become really powerful.
Okay.
Because instead of just listing your skills on a resume, imagine sharing a story that actually brings those skills to life.
Okay, so give me an example. Like, how would that work?
Yeah, so let's say you're known for being a really fantastic problem solver.
Okay.
Well, anyone can say that they're good at solving problems.
Right.
But what if you actually share a story about a time when you tackled a particularly tricky challenge at work?
Okay.
Walk us through your process, the obstacles that you faced, how you persevered to find a solution.
Right. It suddenly becomes a lot more convincing and a lot more memorable than just saying like, oh, I'm a problem solver on my LinkedIn.
Exactly. And it feels more genuine too, because you're not just telling us about your strengths.
Right.
You're actually demonstrating them through your actions.
So it's almost like storytelling becomes this way to like back up our claims with like real life evidence.
And it helps you connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Because when you share a story, you're not just conveying information, you're sharing a part of yourself.
But I imagine it like talking about yourself in that way could be kind of awkward, especially like for those of us who aren't maybe like naturally inclined to toot our own horns. Any tips for like navigating that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's about finding that balance between confidence and humility.
Okay.
So let your actions speak for themselves and really focus on letting that passion and enthusiasm shine through.
So it's not about bragging, it's about like sharing what you're truly excited about.
Exactly. And just remember, like your personal brand, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not something you just perfect overnight.
Right.
It's something that evolves over time as you gain those new experiences and you learn more about yourself.
It's a journey, not a destination.
100%. 100%. And don't be afraid to like ask for feedback along the way too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Talk to your friends, talk to colleagues, mentors, people you trust.
Yeah.
And just ask for their honest perspective. Like, what do they see as your strengths?
Okay.
What stories resonate most with them?
So it's about that self-reflection piece, but also like getting that outside perspective to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward.
100%. It's about combining those inner and outer perspectives to create a narrative that feels really authentic to you.
This has been incredibly eye-opening, but I have to ask, like, what about those of us who like worry we just like don't have good stories to tell?
Right.
What if our lives just aren't that
interesting? Here's the secret. Everyone has a story to tell.
Really?
It's about looking for those moments, big or small, that have really shaped who you are today.
So it doesn't have to be like something...
It doesn't have to be this grand adventure.
Okay.
It could be something as simple as like a time when you mentored a colleague or like, a project that you were really proud of.
Yeah, those aha moments, right, can be really powerful.
Absolutely. It's about finding those threads of meaning and connection in your everyday experiences.
Yeah.
Because those are the moments, those seemingly ordinary moments that often make us so relatable and so interesting to other people.
You've given us so much to think about. I think a big takeaway for me is just like, we all have stories.
Yes.
And those stories can have such a profound impact on how we connect with the world around us.
100%. It's been such a pleasure diving into this with you. And just remember, even if you don't think you're a natural storyteller, it really is a skill that you can develop with practice.
Okay.
So start paying attention to the stories around you and start crafting your own. You might just be surprised at the power of your own narrative.
This was awesome. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on storytelling.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.